It is 2 a.m. You're awake. Not groggy, not half dreaming. Genuinely, quietly awake. The house is still. Your phone glows on the nightstand. You reach for it, check the time, and feel the familiar creep of anxiety. You have 6 hours until your alarm. You do the math. You lie back down and try to force yourself under. Sleep doesn't come. You lie there, calling it insomnia, calling it stress, calling it a problem to fix. But here's what no one told you. What you are experiencing right now, this quiet, alert wakefulness in the deepest hours of the night, is not a malfunction. For the overwhelming majority of human history, it was simply Tuesday. And the people who lived it didn't stare at the ceiling in anxiety. They got up, tended the fire, talked to their spouses, and used those hours for the most creative, contemplative work of their lives. We have been sleeping wrong for less than 200 years, and we've somehow managed to pathologize what may be one of the most natural states the human brain has ever known. Let's go back. Before electricity, before gas lamps, before the industrial clock divided human life into shifts and quotas, people slept in two phases. They called them first sleep and second sleep. The gap between them, usually an hour or two, falling somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m., had its own name, the watch. Historian Roger Ekirch discovered this by accident. He spent 16 years working through pre-industrial archives. Diaries, legal records, medical texts, prayer books, literature. He found over 500 separate references to first sleep and second sleep, scattered across centuries and cultures with no connection to one another. Medieval England, pre-colonial West Africa, ancient Rome, rural France. They all described the same thing. Two sleeps, separated by a waking interval, every single night. This wasn't a class difference or a regional quirk. It was the universal human pattern. And then Ekirch noticed something else. Other scholars had been reading these same documents for generations and consistently mistranslating the references because the idea of sleeping in two separate shifts was so alien to a modern mind that readers simply couldn't register it. The assumption of consolidated sleep ran so deep, it had literally rewritten the historical record. What the archives actually showed was something remarkable. The watch wasn't downtime. It wasn't lying in the dark, waiting to drift back off. It was structured, purposeful, and rich with a quality of life that modern nights simply don't have. People prayed during the watch, not the hurried prayers of a tired mind, but long, unhurried contemplation in the hours when the world was silent and the mind was unusually open. Couples talked, really talked, in the way that only becomes possible when defenses are down and the day's pressures are hours away. 16th century physicians considered the watch the optimal window for conceiving children because both partners were rested and relaxed. People interpreted their first sleep dreams while they were still fresh, wrote in journals, worked on problems that had resisted solution all day. In village communities from France to West Africa, neighbors gathered during the watch, visiting across fences, sharing tobacco, keeping each other company in the dark, not because they had to, because the darkness created a kind of honesty that daylight never quite. Now here is what makes all of this more than just historical curiosity. In the early 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institutes of Mental Health ran an experiment. He wanted to know what would happen to human sleep if you simply removed artificial light. His subjects spent 14 hours in darkness every night for several weeks. No bulbs, no screens, no street lamps, just darkness. The way humans had it for 300,000 years before Edison arrived. Within weeks, without being told what to expect, every single participant reverted to the same pattern. First sleep, a waking interval of 1 to 2 hours. Second sleep, nobody suggested it. Nobody described the two-sleep model beforehand. Their bodies simply found it again, as if it had been waiting underneath the whole time, like a program that runs the moment the interference clears. But what happened during the waking interval is what stopped Wehr's team cold. Prolactin levels during the watch were dramatically elevated, roughly double what you'd measure during normal waking hours. Prolactin is a hormone associated with deep relaxation, with the suppression of anxiety, and with a specific quality of associative, nonlinear thinking, not the focused thinking you bring to a spreadsheet or a deadline. The other kind. The kind that connects things that don't obviously belong together. The kind that produces insight. Weir's subjects described the state as unlike anything in their normal days. Calm but alert. Unhurried. Curiously luminous. Their brainwave patterns during the watch resembled those recorded during meditation. Sleep scientists have a name for this threshold condition: the hypnagogic state, a zone where the dreaming brain and the waking mind are both partially active at the same time. The prefrontal cortex, which handles judgment, self-editing, and the internal voice that tells you an idea is stupid, remains partially suppressed. The limbic system, pattern recognition, emotional association, intuition runs freely. The result is a cognitive environment that simply does not exist anywhere else in the normal waking day. Picture this: England, 1640. A candlemaker wakes naturally around 1 in the morning, as he does every night. He doesn't check a clock. There is no clock. He simply lies there in the warmth of the fading fire, in the kind of quiet that the modern world has made almost impossible to find. He has been thinking about a mechanical problem for 3 days, a way to improve the wick tension on a particular candle mold. The solution arrives now, not in a flash but in a slow, inevitable unfolding, the way a knot loosens when you stop pulling at it. He gets up, works by firelight for an hour, solves it. Then he goes back to sleep. He would not have called it remarkable. It was simply what the watch was for. The same mechanism, in slightly more documented form, shows up across history. Auguste Kekule came to the ring structure of benzene, one of the foundational discoveries of organic chemistry, through a hypnagogic vision of a snake biting its own tail. Mary Shelley encountered the vision that became Frankenstein in the same threshold state. Thomas Edison understood this territory well enough to deliberately engineer access to it, napping with steel balls in his hands so the moment he drifted too deep, they'd drop and wake him, returning him to the hypnagogic edge before it slipped away. These weren't accidents. They were people exploiting a neurological state that pre-industrial humans moved through every single night as a matter of biological routine. Then gas lamps arrived in London in 1807. Then Edison's bulbs went commercial in the 1880s. Then industrial capitalism decided that nighttime was simply daytime with the lights on. The watch became inefficiency. The waking interval became a symptom. Middle of the night alertness became insomnia, a disorder to be treated rather than a state to be inhabited. Within 2 generations, the two-sleep pattern had vanished from collective memory so completely that even the medical profession had no framework for it. The watch disappeared. What replaced it was the anxiety math you do at 2 a.m., calculating remaining sleep hours and calling yourself broken for being awake. Here's what you're actually dealing with. Your nervous system, the same one your ancestors brought to the watch every night for hundreds of thousands of years, did not get the memo. It still surfaces from first sleep right on schedule. It still floods the waking interval with prolactin. It still opens the hypnagogic window. But now there is nowhere to put it, no fire to tend, no neighbor to visit across a dark, a glowing phone, and the anxiety of a modern person who has been told 8 unbroken hours is the only acceptable shape for sleep. So here's a thought. Keep a notebook by the bed. When you wake at 2 a.m., don't reach for the phone. Don't check the time. Lie quietly, or get up and sit somewhere dim. Let your mind move over whatever surfaces. Problems, memories, dreams still fresh from the first sleep. Write down what arrives. Give it 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Sleep will come back. You might be surprised what shows up in the watch. People always were. It is 2 a.m., you're awake. The house is quiet. You have been here before, not just last week, not just last year, but across the whole length of human time, in every culture that ever lay down beside a fire. You are not broken. You are simply between sleeps.